Darth Vader, arguably the most iconic villain in cinematic history. What makes him so unforgettable? It's obvious. His presence, his appearance, and his story. Vader's breathing. Iconic. Vader's fearsome black armor. Iconic. And his voice, immortalized by the legendary James Earl Jones, has become the very sound of fear itself. But beneath that terrifying exterior lies something far more tragic. A twisted design meant to keep Vader powerful, yet tormented. Today we're taking a deep dive into Darth Vader's armor, exploring every agonizing detail, because by the time this video ends, you won't need to watch another breakdown of Vader's suit. This is everything you need to know. Convince yourself and watch to the end, and if I did get something wrong or miss an important detail, feel free to correct me in the comments, but now, enjoy. Darth Vader's suit wasn't just designed to keep him alive, it was engineered to make him suffer. A prison of pain that tormented him every walking moment, pushing him deeper into rage and further down the path of the dark side. To understand how Vader became one of the most powerful yet tortured figures in Star Wars, we need to break down everything from his catastrophic injuries to the calculated cruelty behind every aspect of his armor. It all began on Mustafar, the duel that defined him. A brutal battle against Obi-Wan Kenobi that left Anakin Skywalker's body ruined beyond recognition. Vader's injuries were catastrophic. Third-degree burns scorched nearly his entire body. His skin was seared to the muscle, leaving him in constant pain. His lungs were ravaged by the toxic volcanic gases, forcing him to rely on artificial breathing for the rest of his life. His vocal cords were damaged beyond repair, leaving him unable to speak without the aid of a mechanical device. His eyes were severely damaged. His corneas and retinas permanently scarred by the intense heat. His eardrums melted, forcing him to rely on audio implants to hear. And worst of all, his limbs were severed. Both legs and his left arm were sliced off, leaving him helpless in the volcanic sands. This not only weakened him physically, but also robbed him of his full force potential. Since midichlorians are concentrated heavily in the blood and extremities, the loss of these limbs meant Vader could never fully regain the strength he once had, and could no longer surpass Palpatine's power. On top of that, the injuries he suffered on Mustafar had another devastating consequence. He lost his powerful gift of foresight. He could no longer see in the future. George Lucas himself once explained that had Anakin never been injured, he could have become twice as powerful as Palpatine. But after Mustafar, his connection to the Force would never be the same. While still incredibly strong, Vader had been robbed of his true potential. When Palpatine arrived to retrieve what was left of Anakin Skywalker, he was no longer a man, he was a broken husk, barely clinging to life. But what happened next was worse. Palpatine's medical droids could have restored Vader with sleek, efficient cybernetics like General Grievous's. Powerful yet flexible. Instead, Palpatine ordered something crueler. A suit designed to keep Vader weak, uncomfortable and constantly in pain. The materials, durasteel and inferior alloys. Vader's armor was built from durasteel, a material known for its strength but also for its weight and rigidity. Parts of the armor were reinforced with plasteel, another tough yet inflexible material that added bulk but reduced maneuverability. His cybernetic limbs, the very tools that kept him mobile, were constructed from inferior alloys that frequently malfunctioned. These materials constantly dug into his charred skin, causing him persistent, gnawing pain every movement. Now to Vader's helmet. While his lenses allowed him to see UV and infrared light, his field of vision was heavily restricted. Vader reportedly had to tilt his head nearly 90 degrees downward just to see his own feet. His helmet lenses offered enhanced clarity in darkness, seen most notably in the Rogue One hallway scene we all know, where Vader perfect vision in dim lighting gave him an overwhelming advantage. The scene where Vader ignites his lightsaber, we couldn't see nothing except his lightsaber, but Vader could see everything. But in a chaotic combat, this tunnel vision left him vulnerable to attacks from his peripheral. The helmet's audio sensors transmitted sound directly to his brain, but the system frequently distorted sound, producing echoes, feedback and vibrato effects that disorientated him in crowd or loud environments. Also, the helmet pressure seal allowed him to survive briefly in space or underwater, but this airtight design intensified his claustrophobia, trapping him in a constant state of discomfort. Palpatine had ensured that Vader's helmet would isolate him, robbing him of clear senses and making him paranoid and dependent on his rage. His breathing system. Vader's respirator was a constant reminder of his suffering. The breathing system was implanted directly into his chest, connecting to his helmet by thick cables. It emitted an extremely loud, rhythmic rasp, a sound so constant that it interfered with his focus and sleep. Some nights, Vader couldn't sleep just because of his breathing. Vader's chest panel was essential to his survival, but it was far from perfect. This system regulated his breathing, heartbeat and other internal functions, but was known to glitch and emit random beeping noises without warning. These glitches forced Vader to perform manual resets using switches on his chest plate or belt, further reinforcing his anxiety. Also, Vader's suit was intentionally made weak to force lightning, so that Palpatine could easily strike his apprentice down if Vader betrayed him. And exactly that we can see in The Return of the Jedi. When Vader rescues his son, Palpatine can still hit Vader with force lightning, and in the end, Vader dies because of that. Palpatine had designed a system that kept Vader alive, but always on the edge, knowing a single malfunction could maybe mean his death. Vader's shoulder armor were extremely heavy, making even simple movements a struggle. This excessive weight severely restricted his arm mobility, making it nearly impossible for Vader to raise his arm above his head. And as a result, Vader was forced to abandon his fast acrobatic fighting style from his Jedi days. And instead he developed a slower but more brutal style, relying on devastating power rather than speed. This change is, for example, evident in The Empire Strikes Back, where Vader's calculated strikes reflect his new combat approach. His bodysuit and synthetic skin. Vader's bodysuit was supposed to protect him, but it brought constant torment. His quilted body glove was designed to resist heat and blaster fire, yet it frequently snagged on his flawed cybernetics, adding to his discomfort. His synth skin, a synthetic flesh substitute, constantly itched, rotted and peeled, requiring frequent scrubbing to prevent infection and necrosis. And you just can think about it, how this rotted flesh must have smelled. Also, needles were permanently inserted into his body, leaving him exposed to agony all the time. And this relentless discomfort was, like everything else, no accident. Palpatine ensured Vader's body would never feel at ease. Vader's artificial limbs were crude, outdated and intentionally flawed. Constructed from inferior alloys, these prosthetics often malfunctioned, sending painful feedback signals through his body. The sluggish motors and the cybernetics forced him to adopt a slower, power-based fighting style, as already mentioned. Vader's gloves. Vader's right glove was laced with zip amulets, offering enhanced durability and limited force resistance. Both gloves were reinforced with Mandalorian iron, making them resistant to lightsaber strikes, one of the few designs features that actually enhances combat abilities. Also, you can see that in The Empire Strikes Back, where Han Solo shoots at Vader. Yet this protection came at the cost of flexibility, further limiting Vader's ability to fight with finesse. His boots. Vader's boots contained ferromagnetic cores that allowed him to anchor himself to metallic surfaces, but they were also deliberately heavy. The boots' excessive weight forced Vader into a forward-leaning stance, making walking physically exhausting. He reportedly relied on the Force just to maintain balance while moving. Palpatine had once again ensured that Vader's every movement was a constant struggle. Maybe you noticed Palpatine didn't make the suit so nice. And beside this physical torment, there was also psychological torment. Vader's suit wasn't just physical torment, it was emotional torture. The constant noise that kept him from his sleep, his pain and discomfort robbed him of rest and peace. His disordered voice and monstrous appearance isolated him from others, cutting him off from emotional connections, which Vader perhaps didn't want. So maybe this was a, good thing? His suit forced him to live in a cycle of rage, feeding his connection to the dark side, which you can also see as a good thing. And which is obviously a good thing because, he's still a Sith. He was also trapped in solitary confinement, surrounded by twisted memories of his past. The pain of losing Padme haunted him, and the bitterness of his failure on Mustafar clung to him like his armor. And this is not a good thing. The only time he felt relief was in the meditation chamber, where he could remove his helmet and breathe unaided for brief moments. And his spectating sessions gave him temporary relief from the weight and torment of his armor. But even these moments of peace left him vulnerable, along with his regrets and insecurities. So you see, Vader's suit completely isolated him from others. You could see it as a positive thing in reference to the dark side, but it also puts an enormous strain on his psyche. Despite his endless pain, Vader still refused to improve his armor. But why, if it was so agonizing? First of all, it had life-threatening risk. His implants were deeply integrated, making surgery too dangerous, because he could have died during the armor switch. Also, one thing is emotional penance. Vader believed his suffering was deserved, a reminder of his failure on Mustafar. Also, this armor gave him power through pain. He believed his suffering fueled his rage, strengthening his connection to the dark side. and also one of the biggest points, Palpatine's manipulation. But what's my conclusion? His torment filled him with rage, and as we know, rage is a fuel of the dark side. Vader's pain became a source of power, one that drove him to conquer entire star systems. So, was his armor a weakness, or was it the very reason Darth Vader became one of the most feared beings in the galaxy? What if Vader's armor was upgraded? In the end, one truth remains. Darth Vader wasn't just powerful, he was broken. And Palpatine ensured that suffering would never end. But the paradoxical thing is that Vader tied his whole identity to Sidious, to serve him after he had lost everything on Mustafar. He feared that he was without Sidious just a broken shell of who he once was. He feared that he would lose his purpose to live without Sidious. He was this broken. But what do you think? Could Vader have become stronger with a better suit, or was his suffering the twisted source of his true power? Let me know in the comments below, and if you like this deep dive into Vader's armor, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. And may the Force be with you.